Hey guys, welcome at another module where we're going to talk about how to target smart capital, the holy grail, those that will fund you. Personally, always very excited about this topic because many founders are actually going wrong. They think like, oh, this guy, this girl has a tag called investor, has a bag full of money, and therefore he's able to fund me. This couldn't be more further from the truth, and that will be clarified in this short module. In the former modules, we have of course learned how to flip the script. We have figured out what it means to architect your funding round, and currently we're really going to talk about how to target smart capital. So the main takeaways for you in this specific module is that you will learn that the more relevancy you have with your investor, the faster you're able to close your funding requirements. Other than that, we will focus on that raising capital is actually a number game, right? So if I share that it's a number game, it means very well that you could potentially positively influence the results simply by running the numbers in the worst case and the best case scenario, which should be very exciting for you. Then we have the investor avatar characteristics and what we call the investor trust curve. So sit down, relaxed. It's not a very long module, but please make some notes where you see fit. So the first thing that I would like to share with you is that, like in every module, is that if you seek investors who bring not only money, but strategic value and connections to fuel your growth. So seek investors who bring not only money, right? Money is very dumb. Money is not interesting. Money is a commodity. Capital is a commodity. And capital actually gets significantly more value if it comes from someone that is able to open up doors for you or give you valuable connections or shares their experience through coaching. So just imagine, right? I'm giving a $100 bill here, I have a $100 bill there. This comes from, with a lot of respect, someone who just gives you the cash, sit back and relax. Or the other $100 comes from someone who has been a seasoned entrepreneur, who is very active in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, who has relevance with your industry. That means if you're stuck, you can literally call this person and get more value for the money that you received. And sometimes that value is almost priceless. If I look back into my career, many times it's actually the connections that come with the capital that gives you, an injection for growth. In street terms, we call this dump capital and smart capital, but just focus on that you're giving away part of your company most likely, and at least you want to have, if you're going to do that, you want to at least have a new partner that brings substantial value. So the key here of a takeaway is that in order to get a great match, it will result always in a faster race. And just like dating, alignment of investor interest is really crucial. So let me give you one example. Let's say you are running a business, maybe in Singapore. It's relatively early stage. You do some interesting revenue, not too spectacular, and you're going to look for investors. Now, what the majority of these founders will do is that they seek investors outside of their comfort zone. So let's say if your business is in Singapore, you're going to look for investors that are in the US or maybe in the Middle East or maybe even in China. You see with these three examples that there could be language barriers, someone could not understand your culture, there could be a fact that they don't have any interesting and relevancy with where you operate. And just like I shared in the slide before, you want to make sure that your equity receives more value by simply adding additional relevancy factors. I can say, more like as a rule of thumb, the earlier you are in your journey, the closer proximity you would like to seek for your investor. The more advanced you are in your journey, where risk has been minimized, you could potentially seek in other geographies. So let's look into a few items that you can actually fragmentize your investor list. Now, what I would like to ask you to do while I walk you over these points is to first see like a big ocean full of investors. And your goal is to make that big ocean actually a very nice pond that is organized and only has the fish, in this case the investors that you want. So that starts first by asking yourselves like, okay, how much money do you actually raise, right? Is it 50,000? Is it 200,000? Is it 500,000? Is it 5 million? Is it 50 million? For each ticket size, you have a different range of investors. So you could almost see that the earlier you go, you have a lot to deal with micro investors, maybe successful entrepreneurs that have some capital available and would like to deploy that. Then you have more like professional angels, right? In this case, business angels. Then we have, of course, very quickly angels. So the later stage you are, a different kind of investor could be a fit. Then second of all is geography, right? So if you see this big pond and you see this big ocean and you want to create that pond of investors, your goal is to see the large ocean and based on each of these variables, move fishes from the big ocean to your little pond. So you have a pond of all favorite fish in this case. So the first one was, of course, capital size. Not all investors are the same. We go all the way from angels, syndicates, and later on it transforms into institutional capital. So moving forward, then we are having, of course, the industry, right? So the industry in this case could be a very valuable add-on. And also a lot of investors have, specifically the professional ones, the institutional ones, have certain mandates. So if they raise money, it means that they have a mandate. Could be cybersecurity, could be specific interest in the healthcare sector, could be specific interest in education, right? So the more you align your current business activity with the investor mandates or otherwise interest from the investor, that will 100% work. Then of course we have the sector. The sector in this case is a B2B or a B2C or a B2B2C or a B2B2G. Now in this case it means that a marketing strategy for a B2B sector is completely different than one for a B2C sector. It has a different kind of acquisition strategy, and if you work with an investor that has an interest or a prior success inside of this sector, it will support your thesis significantly. Then of course the stage. Is it early stage? Is it mid stage? Growth stage? Scale stage? All of these items will define what kind of investor you need. You will find out the more money you raise, the easier it gets. The less money you raise, the more questions you get asked. I know that's really ridiculously because people are investing more. But what you can learn from this is that everything has to deal with risk, right? So if the investor is seeking for an additional asset class into his investment portfolio, where he already has loans, he already has ETFs, he already has real estate, then you know that he is currently allocating a portion of his capital to at least get a 15% return. Some of the investors also would like to have, some income generation from their investment. So the key that I want to give to you here is to truly understand that not in all investors are cut out of the same wood. And if you are seeking someone that matches you and fits you like a glove, you will not only get the money, but you will get a sea of expertise, coaching, and connections to your disposal, which could be extremely useful. So your exercise here is really, if you're going to nail down your investor, ask yourself, what is your geography? Ask yourself, in what industry are we active? Where on the scale curve are we currently? How much risk is there currently in my investment? What would be an ideal investor in terms of our ticket size or our geography, right? And then one item that I would like to add, which is a lot of times unspoken, but people will do business with those that they have a shared or common interest with. So if you can incorporate that, that will work for you significantly. Moving to the next one. Raising capital is a number game. What do I mean with a number game? Same like a marketing funnel, raising capital is also a capital funnel in this case. So we add leads in the start of our funnel, and we move them all the way to the end, eventually to become equity partners or debt partners. So this means that you can actually influence your outcome. And what you have been learning in the previous models already, where you can flip the script in terms of your attitude and your behavior towards the investor, or otherwise to architect your funding round so you can leverage scarcity or FOMO or other psychological triggers, you could here as well get better outcomes by seeing this as a marketing funnel. And in the previous module we also discussed the importance of communicating bite-sized elements from your deal rather than overwhelming someone with a lot of information, because investors are busy people, so they would like to go to a quick yes with content that they can easily observe. So let's see here, right? This is purely a benchmark, so don't come back to me later on saying like, hey, Sven, these numbers don't make any sense, right? But I can tell you this: if you are following the planning here in the Get Funded Formula workshop, and you additionally create a pool of at least 150 targeted investors. Again, targeted investors are those that fit your capital, fit your geography, fit your industry, fit your sector, fit your stage, your risk appetite, and ideally some of your personal shared common interest, right? Let's say that is the list. That means that any kind of opportunity you put in front of that list, there's relevance, there's a match. And that match means that your response rate, your positive response rate, will go significantly up. In contrast to those that are just cold emailing, spamming the hell out of it, then you of course don't get any response. So in this case, if you have 150 investors on your list, you could expect that if you put a one-page teaser in front of them with a short email where you ask for a simple, would you be interested to learn more about this business? Then 66% of them would say, sure, tell me more. Of course, it needs to be an investor, right? So then you have 100 people on your list that are interested in your deal, right? And you have learned here inside of the workshop that this is actually called your waiting list. And you don't want to start your fundraise unless you have 150 targeted investors on your list and at least a 66% shows interest. And the reason why that's so important, because later on you want to activate those psychological triggers. Then after these 100 interested people, most likely 50 of them are interested in the first meeting. And at this point I cannot make any better for you. You need to have the meeting. How you can make it easier to conduct these meetings. Maybe you want to club the smaller investors in a webinar, right? Or maybe you want to engineer your meetings in less than 20 minutes, which you practice and practice and practice. Leverage your authority, leverage the way you speak. And your goal is then to move these 50 interested meetings into your second meeting or your second questionnaire. And that could be around 20% of your target list. So you see that currently, before you even raise any funds, that only 20% of those that are on your target list will apply for a second meeting. And then still, your raise is not done, because after that, after all of the beautiful things that you have shared about your business, the good, the bad, the ugly, you're going into a next phase where you have your 6%, 10% of the investors will actually sign a deal. So the rule of thumb here is that 6% of your targeted list will convert inside of your investor pipeline. So to wrap this all up, I want to give you a few additional items on how you can identify smart capital. First of all, always seek synergies over capital. Capital is a commodity. Investors that bring more than cash leads to better deal terms. Imagine that someone is just only interested because of their cash. The terms that roll out of that are horrible, right? Because people are only interested in their financial gain. Where on the other hand, if you go for cash connections, coaching and correlation, you will see that there's more likability for you and that there's more potential discussions possible to sweeten the deal for both parties. So the rule of thumb here is the more overlap, the more investors will get emotionally invested. And you want to get in that stage of being emotionally invested, because then you don't get that significant hard yes or hard no. Then the next item that I would like you to think about, to stack on top of what we are currently discussing, you want to leverage the trust curve. So if you're reaching out to investors, know that investors would like to invest in places they know, right? People you know together, or otherwise interest or groups that you share where there's relevance. Eventually, we're all animals of the herd, right? And we want a sense of belonging. The first thing what people do if they go on a holiday, and they're meeting citizens from similar countries, they're always very happy, like, oh, you're from Indonesia, oh, you're from the United States. That connection, right? So everybody's looking for connection. So when you make your list, try to incorporate in your emails the places they potentially know from their hometown, right? Let's say that you're in the educational business and you're reaching out to an investor in Singapore, right? Try to connect your business to a business or an education business that they know. They feel good with that. Now, perhaps I'm over communicating here, but better bring the point home than leaving it away. Triple the value of funding. So again, greater investor alignment requires less effort to convince them. And synergetic investors provide knowledge, resources, network, increasing the value of funding by at least 3 times. So the point we bring home here is spend time on creating a target list of investors that are perfectly engineered for your business. I can tell you this, it's not the nicest thing to do, but you will get further if you take the time to do that. To close this, as always, I end up with a quote. Smart investor targeting wins the game. Very simple. So in this specific case, the next thing what you can do, first of all, rather than just go video to video, I can imagine if you just take 1 minute after this video and think about what you have learned, go over some notes, you will get active learning and it will start working for you. Even if you incorporate 20% of what I learned, what I teach you here, you will put yourself in the 5% that gets the access to funding. So what you do right now, go to DD Banker AI, work there to discover your investor type, what kind of angel, what kind of risk profile. Then you can build your list. We have a free CRM sheet that you can use where you can add all of your contact details. But again, if you want to do things easier and smarter, then please go to Didi. That is our all-in-one funding solution where we literally consolidate everything together in one place, how you can manage your investor relationships and raise capital successfully. See you in the next module. Thank you.